Good morning, everybody. It is day 33 of spiritual healthcare. Good to see everybody. Welcome. We've got some really interesting things to chat about this afternoon. We're going to be talking about the Smurl family and the relationships between hauntings and disasters and things like that. So it's going to be pretty cool. Really interesting topic. It's such a bizarre case, so we'll wait for some people to log in. I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you have had a really great evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is where you are. I know there's people that come here from all over the place, so I know it's morning here. It's 10 in the morning here, so and I don't know what the weather's like out your way, but it's all it's a little bit on the cloudy side here this afternoon. But I think today is going to be really cool because, as I say, we want to get into talking about the relationships between sort of these types of events and what happens when we don't kind of heal our stuff and then move along through life. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Jay. Good morning, Brian. Everybody that's logging in, it's nice to see you on this lovely morning. As I hope you guys had a good evening yesterday. It was warm here yesterday, except it started to get really windy. So there wasn't too much to do. You could open your windows, but like not too much. I hope you guys are all staying home and staying safe and keeping away from people and doing your isolation stuff. That's important. So as I say, we're going to be chatting about the Smurl family today and what we can learn from that case, because there's a whole pile of things that we're all sort of lumped in together about the Smurl family, and it's a very unique situation on multitudes of levels. So it's good to see everybody. Good morning. Chris says it's 5 p.m. and gorgeous weather. That's perfect. Open the windows up. There's you can't get enough fresh air. You really can't, especially after being stuck inside for inside all this time, and then all winter too, right? We've been locked up all winter. My little snake Galen is super happy that it's starting to warm up. We're having a really late spring. Brian says it's snow flurrying there. That sounds like what it's been in Edmonton as well. Good morning, Kaz. Good morning, everybody. It is good to see you guys. And as I say, I'm super glad that you guys are so enjoying. I've been getting so much feedback. Good morning, Des. I've been getting so much feedback from you guys about spiritual healthcare and how much it is helping you guys, and how much use you're getting out of it, and it just makes me so happy because I think we all need to be coming together at this point in time in history, and it makes me so happy that I'm in a position that I can contribute to that, and you guys contribute to that on such a massive level, because it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you guys. So I just thank you guys so much for all your feedback. I love it so much. It's just it's awesome. It's just awesome. Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Darren. This is fantastic. It's so nice to see everyone. So let's crack open the door of the Smurl case, the Smurl family. So the Smurl family was it became a featured case in a book called The Haunted, and then a movie that ended up following that. So I know there's some of you guys who when I mentioned it yesterday, went out and watched the film, or read the book or whatnot. And it's a really interesting and unique case because the whole thing began with kind of a natural disaster, sort of a situations like we've seen before so often. And the Smurl family, they were a family of 6. There was 4 kids. 2 of them were twins, and then the mom and dad, Jack and Janet. And they lived in Pittston, Pennsylvania. This was in the 1970s. This was about 1974. And the crappy way that this whole situation began was Hurricane Agnes ended up running through at that point in time, destroyed their home. It just totaled everything. And so when we start to look at a haunting case that has gone down the toilet, that's gone just in a really, really negative direction, we always want to look for what set that off. What in that person's life or that family's life or that business or whatever it is, what was that tipping point? And sometimes it's a bunch of things. Sometimes it's a whole rush of things that happen that start to alter a family's, emotional stability. And in this case, it was Hurricane Agnes, and so this whole family was displaced. Of course, they had 4 children, 4 young children. They had literally nowhere to go. So that trauma, it really begins to upset and unbalance. I think just an individual or a family, and you can imagine what it would be like as a kid to be going through all of that. So it wasn't until about 1974 that the haunting started, because what happened was that the family, the Smurls, ended up moving in with their Jack's parents into their home, and everything seemed like not too bad. Everything seemed like it was doing okay until they moved in, and again you've got this family. They've been through a trauma. Now they're kind of jammed in with the in-laws. You can start to see like there's some problems building, right? There's some problems going on. So as in 1974, they noticed this really weird stain, and they couldn't get rid of it. Like it was just they would work on it, and the damn thing would come back, and it would be just as strong as it was before, and they couldn't figure it out. And one of the daughters began to say that she was seeing people in her room, that she was seeing something in her room moving around her room and in her space. So this went on for a number of years. There were just these weird little incidents. So all of these little red flags were popping up, right? So you've got this family, they've moved into this house, and the upset still hasn't really been dealt with, right? They're trying to cover it over. We're going to make good with this situation, but there's nothing that's really happened, right? In terms of healing the trauma of what they've just lost everything. And all of this stuff starts to build up. In 1977, they start really ramping up the poltergeist activity. So stuff's moving around the house. They're seeing all these like weird shapes in the house. Like they were noticing what they thought was like a dog type thing that would like run across the floor and then like almost look like it was running into your lap. They were having just really strange stuff. Their dog ended up attacked. By 1985, they were in a real disaster. They had their twins were born at that point in time, but they were getting attacked with scratches and bites, and the walls were rattling and all sorts of crazy things, like right out of a film, right? So one thing they noticed really, really early on was these bad smells that were showing up within the house, which is typical of a lot of negative hauntings. And what I found is that they typically show up when you've got a negative entity or something like that that's it's trying to tell you to leave. It's almost like a skunk, right? Because all the smells that usually that are usually associated with negative entities are things like sulfur and feces and rotting meat and things like that. All things that we as people are hardwired to stay away from. All these smells, tell us, no, that's dangerous on a very instinctual level. So usually when we end up in with a negative haunting or something like that, and when you've got one of these intelligences that is territorial over a space, then oftentimes what will happen is that they're trying to tell you to leave, and some of the warning signs will be these really bad smells. So as this was going on, everything was just escalating. So at some point, the Smurls, they knew they needed help. They didn't know where to go. Because remember, this is the 70s. This stuff's not talked about. 70s and 80s, I should say. This stuff's not really talked about too much. It's some of the universities, of course, are studying it. They've got their parapsychology labs built, but it's not a common household topic, right? It just isn't. You just don't talk about this stuff, and if you do, you're kind of Looney Tune. So as this was going on, they reached out for help and ended up calling Ed and Lorraine Warren, who, of course, the famous demonologists. They are featured in the Conjuring films and things like that. And the Warrens ended up investigating in 1986. the Warrens typically, they're very religious, right? Like the Warrens are very religious, or were very religious people. So their go-to language is very, it tends to be very dramatic. So, things are demonic, or, things like that, like the very, very, religious terminology. So they ended up calling a fellow by the name of Father McKenna, who they worked with extensively because they believed the house needed an exorcism. So the problem is, when we get into a case like this, and when you've got people who are acknowledging or really putting focus into a negative entity or hauntings like this, is that the haunting inevitably escalates, right? Because now you've got new people that are not only putting focus there, but you've got new people coming into the territory of an entity that's already seeing its territory as violated. So you're going to get this escalation of events almost consistently, and everything got worse for them. They were beaten up, they were bitten, they experienced, there was hissing that was going on all around in the house. Like, they would go into certain areas and they'd get hissed at. Everything this thing could do to try to get rid of them, and to try to protect its space. So they very much often will people or investigators will come in, thinking that they're doing a favor by, trying to get rid of something like that in a property. But usually what ends up happening is sort of the entity sees it as an act of war, and you end up with a bigger conflict. So 3 exorcisms later, three, finally the family got to a point where the family started to, okay, now we're feeling better. Now this has to work. Now we're feeling better. And of course, they attributed that feeling better to the exorcism itself. So once that happened, the activity actually started to dip again. So they were like, oh yeah, so it must be better. This is great. The problem is, they were still dealing with the trauma of losing everything years ago. They'd lost their home. They'd lost so much. And now they were compounding the trauma with this negative haunting that was going on. And let me tell you, it is really hard to find your balance and find that stillness and that, those good feelings and positive emotions, and change the momentum when you've got a momentum that's going for so long, with trauma after trauma after trauma, and not healing that up. It is really, really hard to find your feet at that point, which is why I'm always saying, if something's going on, make sure you deal with it. Heal it up, because once it starts getting compounded, things get really tough. So needless to say, because that was still rooted there, it wasn't long till they got back into their normal swing of everyday life and experience, and all of a sudden, bam, we have a recurrence in activity. It all comes back. They're back into their regular patterns of thought, and boom, we've got a recurrence in activity. So it was really interesting. Now, this case came under a lot of scrutiny because the Warrens were pushing for a book in about 1991. The Smurls didn't want to do it. They weren't interested in the publicity or the money at all. They were, really wanting to be believed, because at this point the media had kind of gravitated to the story, and they were just getting slammed. Like, none of their privacy was destroyed, like it absolutely decimated. And so in 1991, when this book or whatever started to be talked about, it became a real issue for them. The Smurls ended up moving out. They finally got enough money underneath of them to get out and whatnot. But it was just a crazy experience. And interestingly enough, once they moved out of that house and got themselves their own place where they established their own family, their own state of being, their own got settled. What was so interesting, guess what? Guess what happened to the activity? It's gone. It's gone. And, and that's really what, that displacement, that feeling of homeless, or, being unable to put your feet down and, begin to deal with some of this stuff, it really does make a massive difference. And we forget often, I think, that, something like that can start to snowball. So it's a very interesting case, and the Warrens are very interesting people, because I knew Lorraine Warren when she was alive, and she was good lady, but they had a very, very strong religious approach to to the paranormal phenomenon. And oftentimes, I mean, I wasn't in agreement with their methods and things like that, because I don't think you can work this from the outside. I think this is from the inside out, and whatnot. But they worked the Smurl case. They came under a lot of heat as well at that point, because they were very much convinced that if they sort of provoked the entity and drove it out, that all of this was going to be fixed. And my personal opinion is, I think that once you are so focused on that external, you miss that big picture. You really miss the big picture, and you're going to miss the root of what's going on. And I think the Smurl case is a good example of exactly that, where they got out of this kind of negative headspace for a little while, believing that this exorcism and whatnot had worked. But once they got back into those vibrational patterns and those emotional patterns again, bam, the activity is right back. So to me, and I see it all the time in various cases. And Brian's saying it's really easy to get caught up in a negative spiral, and he's completely right. Like, the thing is with hauntings often, or with negative hauntings, I should say, is very much a compounded issue on multiple levels. It's very rarely is it a one issue problem, and you kind of have to start unraveling the onion a little bit to get people to where they need to be. And the thing is that the more we can acknowledge, and like we were talking about yesterday, to tell the truth about how we're feeling, tell the truth about how we're doing, the more this becomes something that's accessible and acknowledgeable. So many people, especially during that time period, we were looking at a generation who was absolutely taught 100% that you don't talk about this stuff. Not only do you not talk about paranormal stuff, but you don't talk about that emotional stuff either. So we've got it's sort of a double-ended sword a little bit, because when you've got a situation where you have a family that's been under this level of stress, and you'll notice that a lot of these severe cases, interestingly, came up in and around the same time period. The Perron family, which was a case, another Ed and Lorraine Warren case, the Perron family was a very similar situation where, you've got you've got a family, same generation, that's under this level of trauma. So, you have to start being able to dig back and look back at some of these, like some of the circumstances and what's going on with a lot of this stuff. It falls under the same category, and Brian's mentioning it as well, of mental illness and the mental illness stigma. That if there's something going on with you, if there's something going on with your brain, then therefore there has to be something that's broken. And we now know that that's just simply untrue. It's just simply not the case. But during those time periods, and during the escalation of a lot of these events, we see that over and over and over again, where people they don't want to acknowledge where they are. And to be able to point at something and call it a demon, or call it this or call it that, becomes very easy, is a very easy label to turn around and throw it outside of ourselves, because then we're not looking inwards. And really, when we get any sort of situation where you've got a negative entity or something like that, then they are really some of the best indicators that you'd ever want to get. They really are. They're some of the best indicators, because they will tell you something's not right. It's basically they're saying, I would not be here if things were good. If things were good, you would not be perceiving me right now. I would not be able to interact in your reality. So we have to take them as an indicator, and at least be able to say, okay, I know you're here for a reason, and there's something going on with me, or I wouldn't be in the same range as you. So it's a catch-22 with them, but they can be really important indicators in our world. So that being said, the process that I wanted to give you guys today for this is about how we are framing things, because here we are, like the Smurls, we're kind of in the middle of this disaster, or what we're perceiving as disaster in a lot of areas of the world right now. And we've got this going on, and I've been reading on Facebook and Twitter and things like that, and I've even on the news, some of the news channels, let me tell you, they have, the way they are wording and framing what is happening is either catastrophic, like just absolutely catastrophic, or they're in denial about it completely, or there just seems to be, it's so polarized right now as to what's going on. But the main thing is how we are phrasing this to ourselves. The way we frame and the way we put down sentences, what we tell ourselves about what's going on is so incredibly important. Are you telling yourself a doomsday story about what's going on right now? Do you believe that you are going to recover from this? And it's hard to know whatever went on in the minds of the Smurls. I have no idea what they were thinking. I can guarantee you it wasn't good. Based on the reflection that their environment was providing them. But I want everybody to start taking a look at that. How are you phrasing stuff that's happening right now with the COVID-19 issue? And it might be worth your while if you've got a journal or something like that, is to write it out. What's your internal dialogue about what's happening? And then read it back to yourself. Read it back to yourself and see if you are being either maybe too catastrophic in your thinking, if there's words that you can change. And it is just such a massive, massive tool to be able to reshape your internal dialogue about what's going on here. And believe me, our internal dialogue will cause us so much anxiety. And we've got to be really careful about what we're doing. Sometimes I'll be talking to clients and they'll turn around and say, I saw, a chair move across my floor and it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. It was just horrible. No, that's not horrible. Kids in the burn unit is horrible. That's not horrible. Somebody who has lost everything and like these poor people in Nova Scotia recently who have lost their families due to there's a massive shooting in Nova Scotia. That's horrible. You seeing a chair moving across the floor is not catastrophic. And so how we're framing and phrasing this is just so damn important. So what I want you guys to do is be able to write down what you're telling yourself about the pandemic, where we are right now. Are you saying things to yourself like, this is never going to get better? I hate this. This is like I'm feeling terrible every day. I'm all of that kind of thing. We got to change our dialogue about this. We really do. So I want you guys to start rephrasing and reframing this stuff. Change your language and be conscious of the language that you're speaking about it. It is absolutely so important. And it actually blends into the to-do that I want to give you guys as well. But the first thing before we do that is I want to read a segment from our awesome book, Faith in the Valley by Ian Van Zandt, which I think is a really key paragraph today, which I absolutely love and I think actually lends to the Smurl family as well. So check this out. In life, there are two kinds of hunters. The kind that hunts for prey and the kind that hunts for people. The difference between hunting for prey and hunting for people is that the hunter traps the prey and kills it. The spirit captures people so that they can live. There is only one way to prevent yourself from becoming prey to the hunters. That is to allow yourself to be captured by the spirit of life. Spirit is always on the lookout for those who really want to live. The spirit of truth, the spirit of peace, the spirit of joy, and the spirit of love are searching for souls right now. And once you are caught, your life will never be the same. This is, and I think that is so brilliant because it is really, as we've talked about so many times before, really getting on board with who we really are, being able to line up, with that joy so that the interactions that we have, can you imagine with the amount of asking and hoping and, love that the Smurl family had for one another? Can you imagine had they lined up with all of that? Had they gotten themselves, to the point where, they were experiencing that joy again and being sitting instead of sitting, in the trauma or ignoring it, right? Just ignoring it. Can you imagine the experiences that they would have had with non-physical energy, with spirits, with all of that, had they lined up with it? Because the contrast was so great. And I think they would have, it would have blown people's minds, because the one thing that I've noticed is that the more we do this work, it's like, you know, miracles just start popping up. And I use the word miracle not in the religious sense, but in the sense that things start to pop in a way that we can't predict. We just can't predict, you know, whatever that non-physical energy is for you, whether it be, you know, you call it source, or whether you call it God, or whether you call it the universe, whatever your label for that is. It's amazing the stuff that's just under the surface that's waiting for us just to line up with this. It's really incredible. I've had some just amazing experiences in my life, and I know there's so many of you guys who have written to me telling me the same thing, you know, or had that like amazing visitation from a loved one, you know, letting them know that they're okay, and, you know, having all of these great interactions with spirits in their homes. You know, I've had some amazing, I've had the privilege of living with some of the most incredible spirits and entities in my life. I've had some bad ones, there's no question, but I've had the privilege of living with so many good ones, and had the privilege of interacting with so many of these incredible intelligences, that it's really an experience you don't want to miss out on. They are so there for us, and so willing to line up and teach us, that it's really something that, you know, you don't want to opt out of. You know, it takes away the fear of death. It takes away, you know, all of those you know, inhibitions. And honestly, if you're in the position where you've lost a loved one or something like that, then it does actually start to take away from the grief as well. It starts to be able to help heal that. So it can be this most amazing thing. So I've got something really exciting about that you guys can join in on if you want. So the Hay House Publication Company, who was Louise Hay, who, if you guys are familiar with Louise Hay, it was her publication company, who now publishes authors that are just amazing, including Iyanla, as well as Eckhart Tolle and Abraham Hicks and numerous others. They are doing what they call, and they do this every year, the Hay House Summit. The Hay House Summit, it is totally free. It is days of these speakers coming online. You can attend it anywhere you want, coming online and doing these incredible engagements and courses for free for everybody. Okay, so it's the Hay House Summit. It starts on April the 30th, so it is coming up. I will put the link up on the Entity Seeker website, or the Facebook page, sorry, so that you guys can sign up if you want. It's really cool. It's an incredible few days of talks and things like that. So it's amazing. So if you guys have, especially if you've been enjoying the books and the readings and stuff that we've been doing here on spiritual healthcare, those speakers are usually a part of it. I know Iyanla is going to be there. I'm not sure if Abraham Hicks is going to be there or not, but I know there's tons of them. I think Michael Beckwith will be there, and it's just, yeah, it's an amazing just basically free course that you can opt in on, and it's all live, and you can sit there and join in on the summit. So I'm gonna put that link up for you guys so you can check it out, because it's so worth it. So that being said, have to do our affirmations. We got to do our health affirmations so that we can go into the day and with the right energy. And okay, everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. There's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. And well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body, and my cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. Everybody take a breath. Thank you guys so much for another incredible morning. I know you guys, some of you guys wrote to me asking about my book, Teaching the Living. It is available on Amazon for those of you guys who are interested. It's Teaching the Living, From Heartbreak to Happiness in a Haunted Home. It covers all the stuff that we're talking about and whatnot. And it's such a unique approach to being able to get our handle on this. But I think, everything that we're talking about right now, and it's just so important to be able to move forward into the next steps of this world and what this world is going to look like. Because, we are going to be experiencing new things. We really are. So the more that we can find our center now, the more we can do that now, we won't compile the trauma. We won't compile all of the stuff, that, as I say, the Smurls went through and so many other people have gone through. We want to be able to heal this stuff as we go, so that when everything clears up, when we start to recover from all of this, because we are recovering, once this is all lifted, we want to be able to have our center. We want to be ready to seize the new opportunities that are coming, because there are going to be so many opportunities, you guys. Things are going to look different, and I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I think, we have the opportunity to now find our calling, put our, all of our anxieties on hold, because the world, everybody's pushed a pause button on the world right now. And this is the opportunity for us to find our center so that we can move forward in a really constructive and more positive way, and find our joy so that we can support others who, have had a terrible time during this pandemic. So have a wonderful day, you guys. Thank you again so much for everything. We will be right back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, on spiritual health care. Thank you guys again so much. And if you want to catch up on past classes, again, remember youtube.com/entityseeker. All of our classes end up going up there, so all the other 32 days right now are up, as well as entityseeker.ca. All the classes, again, are in the media video section that you guys can go through if you want to go back on something. So thank you so much. If you have topics that you want to talk about, you guys have been sending them in. It's been awesome. Please keep sending them in. Don't stop, because it's been fabulous, and I love being able to dig into this with you guys, and take these cases apart and start to figure out what can we learn, because they're all teaching tools. So everybody have an amazing day, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye.